I'm a cake decorator. So, I mean, this is exactly like Bill Murray saying my dad's a piano mover, and that's why. You know.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
What?
For a minute there, I thought you were doing a visual hello, and I'm like, the people can't see that. So.
I was raising the roof for those of you at home, and and then I did kind of a what kind of thing. So
that's correct. And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Yay, I'm here.
Yay. So we're going to be doing a more regular episode today. We're going to take a break from all the death and destruction from the last couple of podcasts and everything. And I'm sure that the two of you and maybe all three of us have gotten super pissed off about something since then.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
All right, Jeremy, you want to go first because yours is important?
No, I want to save mine for the end because it's important.
All right. Well, I'll go on and talk about this. We talked a little bit about this in the intro. My original rant was going to be about Justice League leaking on Tom and Jerry because I found that so absurd. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a little thin. And I wanted to talk about this Harry Styles, not Harry Styles, Harry the Prince.
Oh, Jesus.
I fucked that up.
That's
from
right.
the jump.
Yes, you do.
Harry Potter. I mean Styles. I mean Prince Harry. I mean Harry and the Hendersons.
Okay. I want to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and their very, very famous interview they had with Oprah Winfrey, which, you know, that it kind of came out of nowhere to me. But also, I didn't give a shit because I don't care about sit-down interviews that are carefully coordinated. And I could not give, I'm sorry, English people, but I could not give more of a shit about the royal family. I know there are people that are obsessed with them. I know even in America, they're obsessed with the drama and the family and the riches and the palace and all that. And I appreciate that. It just never held any interest to me. And so when this thing came and went, I was surprised by how much footage it was. I mean, almost every post yesterday on my Twitter feed was about this goddamn interview. And I was like, I don't think I've seen something get this much coverage outside of like a natural disaster or something like that in forever. And so at first I didn't care. As I started reading more about it, I realized that I was being dismissive because this is not about the typical goings on of the salaciousness of the royal family. I don't think. What I understand from the interview is that they came on to essentially give her story more than his story, and about how, because if you didn't know, Meghan Markle is biracial, and how she was treated reportedly by the higher ups in the royal family, by didn't name the Queen, but did talk about other people they didn't name by name, and particularly about her race, particularly about their son's potential skin color, which really went all over me, and particularly about her mental health issues, because she's been fairly forthcoming about this, that she's had past mental health issues. And I believe at some point in this interview, she mentioned having suicidal thoughts and that they were summarily dismissed. I don't know by whom, but I thought that was an important interview and important information about institutional racism, about institutional indifference to mental health, and no bigger institution really out of history, recent history, than the royal family, So I thought it was interesting to bring up. And now that I'm paying a little bit more attention, I realize that institution, something that everybody's known before me, that institution is severely fucked up. What do you guys think?
I don't understand it because they don't. The monarchy does not have political power, at least in terms of Parliament. I'm sure they have plenty of political sway, but I don't understand why it persists. And I don't know enough about it to bash it. I do know that it seemed to me, I watched part of this interview with my wife. It seemed to me that she did draw a line of distinction between what she referred to, I believe, as the firm, which is sort of like the institution, and the actual family members.
Interesting. There's a lot of supplemental characters in that institution.
There are handlers. There are people behind the scenes, dozens of them. And I believe these are the people who were saying things to her like, what color will your son's skin be? And don't go hang out with your friends. It doesn't look good. What's fascinating to me is the week leading up to the interview, the British media was coming up with all kinds of stuff. It felt like it was a coordinated attack ahead of this interview, ragging on her because she wore earrings that had been a gift from Saudi Arabia and bringing Jamal Khashoggi into it, even though not only are most of the jewels the monarchy owns stolen from some other country, but plenty of other people in the royal family had worn the same kind of gifted jewelry, and they didn't get flack for it. The thing that troubled me the most was the speculation, specifically by Piers Morgan, but by more than him, that her suicidal confession was fake. The insinuation being that how could you have all this money and have this wonderful life? I don't believe they actually were suicidal. I've seen this kind of thing before when major celebrities or famous people have admitted to suicidal thoughts. People are so dismissive. Well, you have it all. How the fuck could you be suicidal? And I'm like, do you not remember? You not pay attention. Every year we lose somebody famous to suicide who has millions of dollars. It's not like mental health shit does not know what's in your bank account, man. And you can make an argument that the more famous you are, the more scrutiny you're under. And that only drives insecurity and anxiety and depression.
Look at the Britney documentary as the most recent example of where you really saw how that affected her. Yeah, she has it all. She has adoring fans. She has tons of money. But that can fuck with you.
I followed a Twitter thread yesterday where somebody took from the same newspaper articles with photos about Kate Middleton and articles with photos about Meghan Markle, about 7 different papers. And like, and one example I remember was Kate Middleton, 3 different pictures of her cradling her baby bump when she was pregnant. And the headline from this paper was, look how she dotes on her upcoming child. She's such a good mother, yada, yada. Same paper runs an article with Meghan Markle a month later holding her baby bump. And the article is basically, look at how selfish she is. She's just trying to draw attention to herself by constantly touching her baby bump. And you can't tell me that that's not inherently racist on some level. You know, probably different photographers, probably different headline writers, probably different journalists, but the same institution wrote about the same thing with 2 different princesses and skewed one favorable.
Editor, right?
Yeah. And so, again, I'm not here to attack your monarchy. I know, you know, we were pissed off.
America's already done that.
I'm not trying to make enemies, but I don't understand it. And the quick backlash that she might have been making this up tells me she probably was telling the truth about all of it. That's my hunch.
It just goes a long way to saying that a lot of people just don't. You don't understand until you've actually experienced it yourself, right? Like the you know, I imagine if you were to go around the world looking for the happiest person in the world, that it's not somebody who's got billions of dollars. You know, like money.
It's some old lady in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Money can buy you experiences. It can't buy you happiness. It's one of those things like, you know, when you're sitting there, you know, and you're struggling week to week or whatever, and going paycheck to paycheck and everything, it is sometimes hard for you to understand that people with millions of dollars can be depressed and everything, because like, well, I'm struggling and everything. But, some of these people, I mean, you don't really know until you've actually experienced it for yourself. And a lot of times these people who make these criticisms, like your Piers Morgans and everything, who are like, how can this be? Because of, this logic that I've been hearing. I mean, I know this logic's been around forever and everything, but I keep hearing these stupid arguments that are not based in any kind of fact or anything. They're just logic puzzles that don't have any real data attached to them. But this idea that just because you imagine yourself being happy with all this money, you must think everybody is going to be that way or whatever. And the same goes for all these. I mean, there's just a million other different, I don't want to get into the other ones, but like there's a million other kind of little logic puzzles that people throw out at you that like, yeah, I understand on the surface that sounds pretty stupid, but it's not, you don't know until you're actually in that situation. Before you can't speak on it until you've actually been in this situation to say, this is something that happens. This is something that I need to, of course Meghan Markle thinks this way because, or feels that she's experienced this or whatever, because, you haven't experienced that type of thing. You haven't been through it. So, it's, so that's my take on it. People,
I never thought I would rant about the royal family or even mention them on a podcast, but here we are, and I'm glad you guys kind of see it the same way as I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we would be a lot more informed if we weren't American, and we're, we have our unique perspective on it. But yeah. I'm
okay with being uninformed on a lot of this stuff, except for the institutional, I don't want to say oppression, but institutional influence on someone in the spotlight's mental health and potential, life.
What I thought was also fascinating, I know we're done talking about this, but she said something, and I'm paraphrasing, about how, I was expecting the life of a celebrity. She was an actress. I've experienced celebrity. I've experienced paparazzi. This is not like that. This is a whole other thing. And it made me feel for her. So
anyway, what else do we want to rant about?
All right. So I watch a million movies. I watch so many that I forget them, and you can hear that here on the podcast. There's, we can go through somebody's entire filmography, and I'll tell you about 10 movies I've seen, and I'll be like, I don't remember anything about this. But in the middle of all these, every once in a while, I'll get into discussion about a movie that I don't like, and it's a movie that a lot of people do like, and I'll be like, well, I don't like it. And there's this, what is this? I don't know what we want to call this. This is not something that I think is discussed very often. But okay, so the movie in question that brings this rant up is The Killing of a Sacred Deer. I watched this movie. Basically with quote unquote some friends a couple weeks ago. Watched this movie, and just like a lot of Yorgos Lanthimos movies, it's like, oh, okay, there's some weirdness here. I can get along with this weirdness. And then I didn't like the direction of it. Ended up not liking the movie. And then we started having a discussion. And I'm not putting down anybody or anything. I'm just saying this is a frequent thing that I run into. When somebody says that they do like it, or they do like a movie that you don't like, and then they start saying, well, I was doing some research into this movie, and I found out that they're doing this from a 1950s text, or they're doing this from this obscure book. I think we had similar things that were happening when Charlie Kaufman came out with that. I think I'm thinking about ending things or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of people who liked that movie because, hey, look at what he's doing. Look at these little references of clues he puts in there. And I'm sorry, what does the reference or the basis for the movie have to do with my enjoyment of it? If I am, why should this obscure text or this book or whatever make me go, oh, that's what he was doing? Oh, okay. So all that shit that I didn't like is actually pretty good now. Because he was doing a thing and I didn't realize he was doing a thing. And I've run into this several times in the past couple of years where people will bring something up like that. And they're like, well, he's doing this thing with a blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but what I just watched didn't appeal to me. So okay, I could go and read this book or read and get to know more about this and everything. We did this a long time ago, right? In Cinemasins, when we started doing Harry Potters, we did Harry Potter videos and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. And people who had read the books would always say, well, this is because in the book, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but that happened in the book, didn't it? It didn't happen in the movie. The movie, they don't even talk about this thing that you're talking about. So we're not filling in blanks when we watch movies here. I mean, we're not doing that. There are things that movies intentionally do a lot of times so that you have to fill in the blanks. But this is not intentional. It's not it's intentional that they cut it out, but it's not intentional that they're letting you decide what happened or whatever. It's like, so we started doing those. We started doing Harry Potters and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. And people would always be like, the book. And then finally on Chamber of Secrets, we were like, the book doesn't fucking matter at the time.
Yeah, it's like
shutting down that immediately.
If Oh Brother Were Out There were bad, this is like if that movie were terrible, but somebody said to you, but it's based on the Odyssey.
Right.
And that somehow makes it good, right? Like, Oh Brother is good because it's good, not because it is a loose adaptation of the Odyssey.
Right. No, but you can also, now, if you do enjoy a movie or if you're curious about a film, you can go look that stuff up and enrich the stuff. I did this just recently with Judas and the Black Messiah to get a little more context because I wanted to know more. It doesn't mean that it made the movie better or made it good because it was already good, like Oh Brother. And I just kind of supplemented my experience. So that's a whole different thing than what Chris is talking about, where somebody's explaining to you why it's good. And you're like, no, I saw what I saw. I don't need an external reference or a bibliography to explain that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there, Barrett, is absolutely right. Like, if you enjoyed it just on first blush, go ahead and find deeper things that make it better for you. But if you look at it and go, man, I don't like this at all, how is knowing that it was based on something or it's a shadow of something or like loosely based or whatever they're doing, how does that make me like it suddenly? Yeah. Like, am I supposed to be rewarding the movie for making me feel smart that I know shit? And
maybe so. Wow.
So like, that's the thing. Like I said, I watch millions and millions of movies, and every once in a while, 1 out of 20 will be like, oh my God, that's a good fucking movie right there. And the other ones are like, okay, yeah, I see what they're doing. You go with your bad self. That's all right. I don't, and it'll be, 20 years down the line, I'll be talking about a movie like Possessor, and I'll be like, yeah, man, I haven't seen that movie in forever. I didn't like it. It's all I can say, and then move on.
It will get mentioned.
So
yeah, good stuff.
Anyway, that's my rant.
I want to rant about Spam.
Spam,
the delicious meat substitute.
Yes. Although, yes, I just want to speak directly to the Spam brand for a moment.
Uh-oh.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I saw a commercial 20 minutes before we podcasted. I didn't even have a rant for today, but this is the new spam commercial. The tagline is, don't knock it till you've fried it. Like fried it in a pan. What are you doing? What are you doing? You committed so much to the rhyme, you insulted your product at the beginning of your tagline. Don't knock it. Who the fuck are you advertising to? Don't knock it. This is specifically targeted at people who don't want to eat your nasty shit, right? Don't knock it until you fried it, right? Like, they're trying to do like some kind of cocky shit, right? Like there's this, I think I mentioned this a dozen times, that old terrible ad, because I don't remember, I think it was Buick, but some car company, and their ad was drive everything else first. And I thought that was badass, because they're basically saying ours is the shit, but you won't know it if you don't drive the crap first. So spam is trying to do something like this. Don't knock it until you fried it. And what sucks the most is that spam is doing fine. 12.8 cans of spam are consumed every second. It's sold in 44 countries. In Hawaii, it's a delicacy. They're doing fine. What they should have done, once spam became the name of unwanted email shoved down your inbox's throat, they should have rebranded in English-speaking countries. That it's very easy to do this. Carl's Jr. and Hardee's were the same brand in America for decades. They just had different names in different regions because people knew it by something else, right? Lay's chips in America are called Walker's chips or crisps, over in the UK. This happens all the time. So if you're popular in Hawaii and China, then keep calling yourself spam there. But in the mainland, if you're trying to target people who don't want to eat your nasty shit, why don't you come up with a new name and a new branding of your product, right? And then roll it out to those people as something different. It wasn't like the slogan before this was any better. I misquoted it previously. I thought it was sizzle pork and meat, but it's sizzle pork and which is a terrible tagline. Yeah. And then their website is like screaming at you 6 simple ingredients. And I want to go through these real quick. First ingredient. I don't know. The first this is fine. The first simple ingredient is pork with ham. Now, that's pretty fucking vague. And it's more than one thing. Pork, pig's feet, could be called pork. So the fact that you're telling me the first ingredient is pork with ham, you have to throw the ham in there so that I'm not too fucking scared of the pork. The vague pork is frightening, so you throw it with ham. There's ham. You know ham. You're familiar with ham, right? And then they throw salt, water, potato starch, sugar, and the last one's my favorite, sodium nitrate. Everybody's favorite. Yes. One serving of spam has 57% of your daily intake for sodium. One serving. One serving.
It sounds delicious.
There is so much wrong with this product and its branding. I just beg you to listen to reason, man. Come up. Now, they do have like a light version. They got like 100 different kinds of spam now. They got pumpkin spice.
Do they really?
Spam. Yes, what? They have pumpkin spice spam.
Lovely spam, wonderful spam.
I can't help but think there's one of these outfits that does their own marketing. They don't outsource to like an ad agency or anything, and they think that they're smart enough. We know our product best. And I'm just telling you right now, don't knock it till you've fried it is one of the worst slogans I've ever heard in my entire life. And rant.
Yeah. They should just play that skit, that Monty Python skit, where it's like, spam, eggs and bacon and spam. We will need a lot of spam, and spam with extra spam.
Yeah. That's the reason that we call email you don't want spam. God.
All right. Does anybody have any recommends and warns?
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
I'll go ahead. On Netflix, there is a documentary called My Octopus Teacher.
It's a documentary?
It is.
Wow.
And it is about a guy who dives in a South African kelp forest, and he starts observing, and he's taking video and everything, and he runs into this octopus, and obviously the octopus is scared of him and everything, but the first thing that he notices that's very strange that makes him want to keep going down there is he notices this it's like this boxy looking thing on the bottom, sitting on the bottom of the ocean floor, that's all like seashells and stuff, just like all like glued together, it looks like. And it's really weird. And he's sitting there looking at it, and he's like, even the fish come by and don't know what the hell is going on. The fish are coming by and they're like, what is this thing? And
they're like, all right, what the fuck is this? I'm a fish.
Yeah, exactly. And you see this thing full of seashells just sort of explode, and an octopus flies out of it. And he starts going down. He tells us he didn't realize it at the time, but this was the end of a drama that he had come to late to the party. So he didn't know what this was about, and he didn't think he ever would figure out what it was. So he goes down there and he keeps trying to find this octopus, and at first the octopus is kind of scared of him, but then after a while he's able to get the octopus to like touch him and like sit there and sort of feel his arm and his hand and everything. And it's not like they're best buddies immediately or anything like that, but as he goes down day by day, he realizes that this octopus is suddenly not scared of him anymore, and is used to his presence, and is just going about the usual day of trying to find food and everything. But the main thing that this octopus is trying to do is trying to evade sharks that are in the area. And so there are all these he captures these sharks going after him, and he says to himself, it's very tempting to want to save the octopus if the sharks get too close or anything. I won't tell you anything else about this, because you need to really watch this movie. This documentary is wonderful. This is a semi recommend from Aaron, because we're trying to get to our year end list for 2020. And this one was in a specialized list after I'd seen the main contenders for 2020. And I watched this, I don't know, last week at some point, and it is one of the most fascinating documentaries I've ever seen. A man and an octopus sort of like having a friendship in this. You can't really deny from what you see on the screen that there is some sort of kind of like acknowledgement between these two species here. And it is well worth your time. It's like an hour and 25 minutes, something like that. I mean, watch this shit. It's good.
So this is on Netflix, and it takes place in Australia. Is that what you said?
South Africa.
South Africa. And is the guy like a professional diver, or is it just interested in this story?
He had done another documentary film where he followed around these super amazing trackers in Africa. And that's another one that I want to watch, because they showed some footage of that, by the way. And I was like, they're like, these people can find the tiniest things to find wildlife in Africa, like stuff that you would never see if you were just wandering about. They can find just the tiniest things. And in fact, there's a point where he says, I had to do that with the octopus, because there was a point where they sort of separated. There was an incident that happens where they sort of get separated, and he has to find the octopus again. And he had to use some of those same kind of, tracking techniques to find the octopus. So anyway, he had done that before. I'm not sure if he was an experienced, I'm not sure if he was a diver per se. There was something in the documentary he said that he didn't normally do. He may not have like been a guy that studied ocean life really. He may have dived before, but not, and he may be really good at it, but I don't think he was a guy that would observe or anything. So this is he said that there are some things that you'll watch in this. You're like, this is just amazing. This octopus is way smarter than you would ever give it credit for. And he said he would go and try to find documentation about some of the stuff that he's seen, and he just couldn't find any. There's nothing about it. So My Octopus Teacher, yeah, go watch that.
I would never have picked that unless you had said this. So that's interesting.
I'm going to start out with the Wreck of Warren.
Okay.
For a movie that you can find on HBO Max right now. Came out in June of 2020 called Irresistible, starring Steve Carell. Have you seen it?
I have not. I know what you're talking about, though.
All right. Yeah, written and directed by Jon Stewart, formerly of The Daily Show. It stars Steve Carell, Chris Cooper, Mackenzie Davis, Topher Grace, Rose Byrne, Natasha Lyonne. It's a Recca because this is a pretty harmless movie. I think it's trying to make a really big statement. And I'll get to that in a minute. But, you've seen this kind of movie before. It's national political heavyweights coming into a small town to try and help sway a small election. So it's kind of like The Campaign meets the movie that killed Gene Hackman's career.
Swing Vote.
Welcome to Mooseport.
Welcome to Mooseport, Swing Vote, all of these. And you're not going to see anything revolutionary here. But subdued Steve Carell, I really like. His early career is so hammy, but then once he started kind of slowing down and giving quiet performances here and there, I think it actually sharpened his humor because he's really funny in this movie, and it's almost all non sequitur, sarcastic throwaways that people don't react to or hear. The Recca is because everyone is charming in this movie. There are some laughs. The basic story is he's dejected after Trump has won. He's a Democratic political strategist, and he's looking for inspiration. And he sees a viral video of Chris Cooper, this small-town farmer guy in Wisconsin, standing up at a town hall, giving this very moving speech that defends the people from the politics of the area. The video goes viral. And he decides, I'm going to go convince this guy to run for Democratic mayor in this Republican town. And so then the Republican Party sends Rose Byrne, his counterpart, national strategist, to town to help the incumbent Republican mayor win. And it just becomes this comedy of errors, I guess, as both sides try and one-up each other. There's a scene where they pass out flyers about abortion rights to a neighborhood that had a high female concentration, according to their data, and it turns out they were all nuns. And it does play a little bit with, our expectations in that regard. But I don't know if I guess I can't spoil it since I'm Recca warning it. The end of this movie is absolutely preposterous. It's more ridiculous than anything in Deja Vu. It's more ridiculous than anything in Passengers. It's just, when this movie reveals itself to you, you will be like, the fuck? And that's when the movie starts beating its chest like, yeah, I'm awesome. And it completely falls apart and really bothered me. It's like they're swinging for like fences 3 ballparks away with this ending. And it's a big strikeout, man. I was really bummed by the resolution of this film. So know that going in. Maybe you'll love it. I doubt it, because it kind of is a middle finger to everyone. All the characters, all the viewers. This movie at the end is just like, fuck you, here's my movie.
Now I want to watch it now.
Yeah.
Well, I'll spoil it for you.
Show up and say, I'm gay?
Not that
I don't
recall.
want to hear what happens. I'll watch it at some point.
All right. I won't spoil it. It's absolutely preposterous, but up until then, it's pretty charming slice of life. Fish out of water kind of dealy deal. There you go.
Yeah, I actually had that on my list, and there was just something about it that did not want me to click on it. So
yeah,
but I may just skip to the end. Because you've explained everything.
Well, if you skip to the end, it won't make any sense. But
no, that's true.
More power to you.
That's what I did with Serenity. I came in when Chris was watching it right at the end.
Hilarious.
Oh no! Oh no!
That was hilarious.
I had no context whatsoever, and I was just like,
And I was like, Barrett, before we get to the end of this movie, I will show you the sex scene that's between Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely the most insane thing ever. It's one of those movies that's set up, and it sounds like Irresistible might be the same way, that the whammy was created first, and then the movie leading up to it is what we just want to get to the surprise. Once they get to the surprise, nobody will even care about what happened before.
Yeah. All right. I got one that's hot off the presses. I think this came out last week as we record this. It's Judas and the Black Messiah. Came out on HBO Max as well. It's one of those WB releases that is in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time. That's pissing off everybody, including Christopher Nolan and fucking Denis Villeneuve. So this, I kind of knew the story of Fred Hampton, who was the chairman of the Black Panthers in the Illinois chapter, from just various bits of history that I picked up over the years. And then most notably, just recently in the trial of the Chicago 7, he was even though he didn't have a whole lot of screen time, he had a prominent impact in there. He was kind of the general to Bobby Seale. And you could see how his death, and this is not spoiling it, how his death impacted both Bobby Seale and the rest of the trial. I want to start out by saying this is the best movie that I've seen this year so far. I know we're only in March, but you will be hooked from the very, very beginning. And the reason why, rightfully so, and I've got a point about this, rightfully so, Daniel Kaluuya is getting a lot of awards talk. And rightfully so. He gives one of the best performances I've seen outside of maybe somebody like Denzel in Malcolm X. He is powerful. When actors, male or female, when actors play skilled orators, and that's my other recommend, by the way, skilled orators, and you see because a lot of these people are historical figures, and we never saw them live, right? I never saw Fred Hampton talk. I never saw Abraham Lincoln talk. But when you have those words in a skilled actor, there's something about it, man. And Daniel Kaluuya inhabits this character, Fred Hampton. I don't know, and maybe I'm misrepresenting this, but I think he's being nominated for supporting actor for almost all these. I think Golden Globes, he had that infamous incident where his mute was on the Zoom thing, but I think he won for best supporting actor. He's every bit as much of a lead as anybody else in this movie, especially I think Lakeith Stanfield is generally considered as the lead. And I don't know how that works or why that works, but he's a powerhouse and he's the focus of this movie. Mm-hmm. Lakeith Stanfield, we've talked about many times. I feel like he's been underused in a lot of projects like Knives Out. I haven't seen Sorry to Bother You, or really a whole lot of Atlanta. But I do know that he's a freaking talent. He's terrific in this. So he plays a guy that essentially infiltrates the Black Panthers to get close to Fred Hampton. And he's put up to this by Jesse Plemons, who's playing an FBI agent, who's ordered by the hilariously made up Martin Sheen as J. Edgar Hoover. Swear to God, the only way that you'll recognize Martin Sheen in this movie is just by the voice, because he looks ridiculous. Makeup job did great in the rest of the movie, but no, this is not good. So it basically follows the purpose of the Black Panthers, which was community outreach, especially in Chicago. He made political allies. He made allies with gangs, black gangs, Puerto Rican gangs, white gangs, rednecks, all that stuff. He brought them together to form that Rainbow Coalition that you've heard so much about. And it's fascinating. The reason to watch is Daniel Kaluuya and his scenes with his wife, played by Dominic Fishback. The fact that he beefed up for this role. He got a little mushy, and you know how cut that guy is normally. It's brilliant filmmaking by Shaka King, who I'd never heard of before. So the only criticism that I'll have of this film is that at the end of it, they do, as most biopics do, what happened to the characters in text as they go along. Now, the most interesting one is Bill O'Neill, played by Lakeith Stanfield, how he ended up. I did not know how he ended up, but that's compelling. It also says that Fred Hampton died at 21 years old.
Damn.
And Bill O'Neill was 17 when the start of this movie happened. I'm not going to put too much into it because they're both amazing, but ain't no way Daniel Kaluuya is passing for 21 years old, and ain't no way Lakeith Stanfield is passing for 17 years old.
Well, I mean,
tiny criticism, but
yeah. How long does this? What's the time span on this? Is it just over a summer, or is it like?
No, it's over because he does go to jail for a period of months before he gets let out. So probably over the course of a year or somewhere around.
So it's not years and years. It's not like they were trying to get somebody who would be the age that they are now by the time that they end the story or whatever. This reminds me, by the way, this happens all the time. They do this shit. It's incredible. In Goodfellas, where De Niro walks in for the first time and Ray Liotta's like, he must have been like 29 at the time. And you're like, fucking De Niro doesn't look, he's 29 years from 29 maybe.
It's like his character in The Irishman, like trying to be like a Billy Badass when he's 76 years old or however.
Right. So, I mean, they do this. I mean, I guess it's understandable. They want these particular actors because they feel like they're the ones who can do the job the best. And you know, they don't want you to know that whole thing about do they even mention the age in the movie?
They do. Yeah, it's in that final coda.
Oh, wow.
Is that he died at 21 years old. And
okay, but they don't
that
do
almost
it
made me laugh because it's not funny, obviously.
Right.
But I was like, what? Are you serious? But,
yeah.
It's a very small complaint. Kaluuya, I think, is born to play this type of role. I don't think I've disliked anything he's done. He was the best part of Widows, I think. Mm-hmm. He was probably the best part of Get Out. And I mean, he's just a powerhouse. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, everybody, it's time to talk about Mubi once again.
Yes, Mubi.
You know, this service has gotten better than it was when we first started talking about it.
I agree.
There was a time when, and this was great, but it was a time when, you know, they would have a movie a day and they would have movies that would last for a month. And then you had your last chance to watch it and then it would be off the service. But now you seem to get, they seem to be more collecting the movies now, and they're putting it in the library at the end. If you happen to miss it on this one try, you can now watch it later or whatever. One of these movies that I got to watch, that's on there right now is Yorgos Lanthimos' Dogtooth. It is. Yorgos Lanthimos obviously is a guy who he's polarizing. The movies he makes, I mean, the most accessible movie he's made is The Favorite. And The Favorite has its weirdness to it, you know, like, but everything else he's done, is at least the ones that you've heard of, have this really like insane bent twist to it, and everything. And Dogtooth is about a family, a couple, and really the father of the family, so overprotective of his children, he doesn't let them out ever, and he's basically training them like dogs. dogs.
It's the even more fucked up version of The Village.
Yeah. Although I think they know that there's a world out there, but they think the world is like violent and like immediate death if you walk out and everything. They even think they have a brother on the other side of the wall who is surviving out there, and they're throwing food to him and everything. But this movie gets progressively more fucked up as it goes along. It looks like they've sort of got this competition going between the brother and his two sisters, and whoever wins, however they win, through these weird competitions, like let's see how long we can stick our finger under a hot faucet water dripping or whatever, and stuff like that. They collect a number of points, and then they get to pick whatever they want to pick or whatever. But the father's also like bringing this female security guard home so that the brother can have sex. I guess it's to learn about sex. Yep. I don't know, or just to have it. Like every guy, I can see that they don't say this in the movie, but the father is probably like, he needs to know. He's a guy. He needs to have sex. So, he brings this woman home to do that. But with that woman coming in to the house, she's kind of introducing things in that they're not used to. So a lot of times they'll suddenly out of nowhere ask a question like, what is this? And then the parents have to lie to them about what that thing is that they just heard. So there's a point early on where you see them where where the younger sister's like, will you pass the phone? And the mom passes her a salt shaker. And that word phone is obviously something in the past that they heard about that they're not supposed to know about, that they got lied to about. And so that movie is fascinating. Dogtooth is fascinating. It is like, it's maybe a little bit too violent for some people. Yeah. The violence, there's not much violence, but when it does come, it comes quick and unexpectedly a lot of time. Yeah. So it's all the more horrifying when it comes up. But it's a fascinating movie, and it's worth getting the service for, I think, if you want to see Dogtooth.
Yeah, and as much as they're adding to their collection at Mubi, it's still curated. You know what I mean? It's not just like the other streaming services where it's just, oh, well, you'll get a Bond film on there every once in a while, or like, right. A bunch of other studios and things like this. These are curated films that are picked for a reason. And as weird as Dogtooth is, it is very much an artistic film that pushes you in different ways than, say, the standard fare would be. Mm-hmm. In terms of this one, man, Dogtooth is messed up, but I just love it. And like I've said before, Yorgos Lanthimos, Yorgos Lanthimos is my guy. I'd probably put it favorite lobster, Killing the Sacred Deer in this, but they're all great in my mind. So if you want to watch that, go to Mubi.com/Cinemasins. And you get a whole month free. So all this stuff that we were talking about that is curated and has multiplied over the years is ready for you now. You've been listening to us talk about this. Just go ahead and do it. I'm going to tell you about one movie real quick that completely changed my perspective. Jeremy, do you I know you watch a lot of costume period dramas. Is that like a thing of yours, like you really like that genre, or is it just that you happen to watch them, flipping channels or something like that?
It's more of the latter. No, a lot of it is my wife. My wife could watch the most boring, terrible costume period drama and love it just for the scenery and the costumes. That's not me, but I do like them.
I got you. Okay, so I came across this movie called Beloved Sisters. That's the English translation. It's a German film directed by this incredibly prolific director, Dominic Graf, who I'd never heard of before. I hadn't heard of anybody that's in this movie. It looked interesting. And what's really weird to me is there's something about some of these films that catch your eye. This movie's almost 3 hours long, and that's usually a non-starter for me. But it just looked interesting. The story looked interesting. It's about two sisters that, as the title suggests, that are completely in love and devoted to each other, and not in a creepy way. I was thinking that may be the case, even because especially they get into a quote love triangle with this German poet. It was based on a real person. All of this is based in reality. Friedrich Schiller is the guy's name. And so as Schiller's star gets on the rise, the two sisters fall deeply in love with him. One of them's married just by, for money reasons. And so the other one gets married to this guy. But they do not abate their love for both each other and him the entire movie. And it's the weirdest love triangle I've ever seen. Yes, there is a tiny moment of jealousy and, misunderstanding and stuff like that. But overall, man, it's a literal triangle. They love each other as much as everyone loves them. And I've never really seen something projected that way. The other thing about this is it's shot gorgeously. This is 2014. And apparently, Dominic Graff is known for his scenery and things like that. And God bless it, this movie is beautiful to watch. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, it's got a very interesting ending too that I won't give away. I would totally recommend it. It's called Beloved Sisters. I'm not going to try the German pronunciation, but it's on Mubi right now, and there are a ton of stuff. If you want to watch the original Swept Away, not the Madonna Guy Ritchie version, by the way, that's on there right now. There's a lot of contemporary stuff on there. There's a bunch of shorts on there right now. Go to Mubi.com, MUBI.com/Cinemasins. You get a month, people. Come on. Just do it. If it's a month for free, what do you have to lose? You're going to get great cinema. We wouldn't fiddle fart around and lead you wrong. So go to Mubi.com/Cinemasins.
Man, I really do have a lot to choose from. I couldn't figure out really. I mean, I no doubt watched over 20 movies this last week.
Wow.
You're killing it, man.
No, seriously. I mean, I 20 plus, and I was like, which one do I pick out of all this? And I don't even know if this is the right one or what, but I struggled with what I was going to, I knew my octopus teacher was the one that was definitely going to be said. Then after that, it's like, well, some of these I don't want to talk about until we do the year end thing. Some of these I could talk about now, but which one's the one that stands out? I ended up on #alive.
I read your summary of this on the email, and I am very intrigued with this.
Yeah, it's a zombie movie from Korea. And a lot of you probably are like, oh, zombie movie. I don't want to watch a zombie movie. This takes a different angle. This isn't necessarily about somebody out in the wild and trying to evade zombies and getting shelter and all that, the classic tropes of zombie movies. This is where a person's already in their shelter and they can't leave it, and they don't have enough food to really survive a prolonged attack outside. It opens up very simply with this kid. He finds a note from his family saying that they've left for the day. They were too excited about something and they had to leave immediately. And here's some money for some groceries. And he's like, all right, whatever. And then he goes off and he starts playing a video game. It's some online multiplayer thing, and he's sitting there, they're, doing their whole thing. One of his buddies is like, oh, did you see the news? What's going on? So that's when the zombie attack starts. You see all the zombies out on the street, the news is all over it and everything. So he stops playing the game. He goes outside and he sees all these, all this craziness going out on the street, people getting chomped up and, people running all around and everything. And he's safe. He's absolutely safe. He doesn't have to go outside. The problem is he didn't go get groceries, did he? And his refrigerator is not filled. It's got a few things. It's got enough to last him a few days, maybe. Obviously this could go a number of directions. They could just make this about like some extreme hunger or something like that and turn it into another kind of horror movie. But that's not where this movie's going. It's a little bit more lighthearted than that. He is trying to figure out what is he going to do? What is he going to do? And eventually he finds another person on the other side. He's in an apartment building, and there's this other woman in another apartment building, of course, directly the exact same height in another apartment building.
He's like Ving Rhames in Dawn of the Dead from the top of the mall.
Yeah. And there's some interesting things like how they try to end up communicating. How do they end up doing a lot of different little tasks in this movie? I think this movie could have taken this premise a lot further if they wanted to. There could have been some things that would have made this a lot better. But what it ends up being is this is just it's a fun, basic zombie movie, but with a different, yes, they do have to evade zombies. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be points where
the zombies in there. Trust me. Yeah. The zombies.
But there's when it does come to that, there are some different little twists to those kinds of meetings, and like there's always I think in a zombie movie where somebody finds another person that's out there, and it's like, oh my God, thank God there's somebody else out there and everything. Is this person completely safe? We don't know. We don't know that person. And so there's a lot of like little twists there too. So it's a fun movie. #alive. I really enjoyed it. Out of this, 20 plus movies that I watched, it did stand out. So
very good.
I would recommend it.
That movie's very right up my alley, baby. That's right up my alley. Right down the pipe, whatever.
Pikey pipe. I'm going to take a rec-a-warn and turn it into a recommend with caveats. And I said caveats, not caveats, because I'm exactly not important. The movie is from 2018 called American Woman, and it stars Sienna Miller. And I had never heard of it, and hilariously thought I was clicking to watch some sort of Lenny Kravitz documentary or something.
I gotta go! I gotta get away!
Directed by Jake Scott, who directed Welcome to the Rileys, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, and a movie late 90s called Plunkett and McLean. But other than that, it's a lot of video shorts. This movie is a recommend because of the performances. Sienna Miller is not somebody I have ever considered a powerhouse actress, and that may say more about me than it does her, simply because I haven't seen a lot of her work.
You didn't see G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra.
Oh, yeah.
But when I've seen her, it's in stuff like that, and I never think of her as like an awards contender, and she's fucking awesome in this movie. The movie takes place over a long time, I think 16 to 20 years. It starts out with her, and she's a single mother with a 16-year-old daughter, and the 16-year-old daughter has her own infant son. One of the caveats I'm giving you in this movie is it's depressing as hell, and it will make you sad. I think it will also make you happy in certain ways, but basically this entire movie is just beating her up left and right. So the first thing that happens, she's already a single mother struggling with two small children, but then her 16-year-old daughter goes missing. After panicking, blaming it on the ex-boyfriend, who's the father of the little child, we jump ahead in time, and now that's a cold case, and the boy is 7 or 8 years old, and she's raising him, and she's being encouraged to date. So she dates a guy, and he's abusive. He's a dickhead, and she stays with him because he provides for them. So there's more turmoil and tragedy. She finally gets rid of him, and she starts dating Aaron Paul.
Oh, look at him.
And he's great in this movie, and he's finally the nice guy that she's never had in her life until he cheats on her. It's just keeps hammering this poor woman left and right with trials and tribulations. And I think the victory is that she survives and still has the will to go on. And the movie ends with her and the now teenage grandson deciding they need a new town. They're going to leave this place they've lived forever, and they go off down the road.
Wait, the daughter doesn't get found?
Well, yes. I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not happy. And again, that's tragic, but it's just one of many tragic things this woman has had to overcome. And I think what the movie is saying is that in small ways and big, a lot of American women are overlooked by society and face struggles similar to this all the time. And I was pretty moved by it. I found it very dark and sad. And I don't think the pacing works with the spread out over 16 to 20 years. Every time it time jumps, felt frustrating to me. Almost like this could have been a show or a mini series where we saw more what was in the gaps. But her performance blew me away, and that alone, I think, is reason to recommend it. So there you go.
Sienna Miller is one of those. I'm the same way about her. I've never. There's one performance I remember where people basically said she had arrived, and that was Factory Girl, and I had seen that. She plays Edie Sedgwick in that.
Yeah, she's awesome in that.
Yeah, she's awesome in that. And so, but then, like, it seems like Sienna Miller, it doesn't get prettier than her, but she seems to be like a chameleon in a way. Like every time I see her, I'm like, she seems familiar. Who is she?
Yeah.
And that was the way it was when you see her in American Sniper, and you're like, oh, I know I've seen this girl before. Where is it? What is it? And then you the credits roll, and you're like, oh, that was Sienna Miller.
Yeah.
So she tends to do that somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like she's got it in her to be like an awesome actress and everything. It's just a lot of times she seems to really blend in.
Yeah,
she's also in an excellent movie called Interview with Steve Buscemi that I would recommend to you guys. It's really, really good. She plays like an actress that he has to interview, even though like he's used to doing like presidential interviews and stuff like that. It's really good. Oh, Steve Buscemi directed it. So yeah, I would totally recommend that. Well, you've seen Layer Cake, right?
Yeah, but
yes.
that was another one I saw long ago.
I gotcha. American Woman. All right. I'm going to make mine quick because we've talked about this movie before, but I had a rediscovering, and I want to get to some questions. And it's Lincoln. All right, Steven Spielberg's Lincoln. Oscar bait. What was it? 2011, 2012 that it came out. And it was nominated.
No. Sorry.
It was nominated for a bunch. And I think Daniel Day-Lewis won for Best Actor, right?
He did.
So this movie is also very long. It seemed long. Well, it's 2.5 hours. Anyway, it came on right after Grudge Match.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I was watching it the other day. And it pulled me in. I know we've talked about this movie, and maybe you guys are higher on it than I was, but I put this movie, kind of down in the subpar post level of Steven Spielberg movies. I think this movie is awesome. It's not what you think of when you think of Lincoln. He's not up there doing the Gettysburg Address or anything like that. But what he does is it tells you how he communicated, and it's very, it's weird to say, very Jesus-like, right?
Mhm.
He tells stories. That famous scene in the, it's not in the White House, but that famous scene where he goes to get tea, and he tells the story of the guy that goes into the bathroom in England and sees the picture of George Washington. And, the punchline is, George Washington has always want to make Englishmen shit themselves being in the bathroom. And you see the playfulness of Lincoln. You see the political savvy of Lincoln. You see how unbelievably smart he is and how measured he is. And I guess it hit me, and this is so fucking cheesy. I know it is. I guess it hit me because you think we're divided now. We were even more divided with less communication back in 1865. If you weren't aware, there was a civil war going on, and people hated each other. And this president somehow managed to help arrange the
I'm sorry.
help arrange the surrender of the Union, or not the Union Army, the Southern Army, Confederate Army, and also to keep the country together. And God, it gave me a little bit of hope, I guess. And it really did amaze me how it was paced. I know it's a little bit long, and there's a Joseph Gordon-Levitt that I don't think needs to be in there. But
not at all.
No. But like it's very, very impressive how they pulled this off. And especially, obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis is fantastic at everything. But this shot to like his upper echelon performances to me.
I think he's great. I don't know if I will ever like this movie, but I respect your enjoyment of it this time around. The main takeaway for me is still, I mean, I'm glad it gives you optimism. It depressed the fuck out of me to know that even Lincoln had to cheat and do some underhanded shit in order to get slavery abolished. Like, really depressed me that this guy I'd been told was a hero had, according to this movie, done the same kind of bribing and threatening shit that goes on. I imagine it has always gone on in all forms of government. Arm twisting and whatnot. All the James Spader subplot stuff is very amusing and very like, I like that part of the movie, but like I came away with the movie thinking he was more flawed than I thought before.
See, I like that. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
I get it.
Because nothing is perfect, and I don't want to be results-oriented thinking about this, but it was a means to an end that was a worthy end. I think that was worth doing all that. Now you can't debate the end of slavery as a worthy end for anything. But,
no, I'm not. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying you personally.
Wouldn't it have been great if we could have banned slavery because we had the votes, because it was the right thing to do? Yep. Obviously, it was historically it was the right thing for him to do to have done that, but it's still murky. It's murky, man.
It is. It ain't pure. It's it doesn't set up a happy ending. Yeah, there's like a rah moment when who was it? The one senator that's like, fuck it, let's, I vote aye or whatever. Yeah, it historically it's not a super happy ending.
Well, and also not only did he have to cheat to get to that point, as we find out with the Juneteenth holiday and everything, it took until June until Texas got they got the word about it. That's fucked up on another level.
Yeah. Yes, and all the Jim Crow stuff, obviously, too. That was part of the negotiation with the Confederates.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's why we still have problems today, is because of that compromise. I mean, they had all the power in the world to change all of that and didn't.
Yep.
I remember watching this and I really liked Lincoln. I was the same way about Robert Lincoln stuff that was in this. Didn't seem to need to be in there at all. Sally Field, who I like a lot. I didn't like her in this.
Oh, really?
She was nominated for an Oscar and I was like, I didn't like her in this movie. I just didn't like anything about it. So there were some things about that. So like, overall, I remember liking this movie, but I haven't seen it since it came out. I just remember, like, Sally Field, not as good as I thought she was, not as good as Oscar-nominated worthy, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character needs to go away.
Now, this movie, if you could call a cast stuffed, this movie is stuffed. Yeah. Adam Driver shows up out of nowhere. Jared Harris is fucking Ulysses S. Grant. Hal Holbrook plays a big role in this, and like, everywhere you look is like a new famous person. Who was the Bruce McGill is one of them, but who is the Democrat that decided he's going to flip? I don't know. Yeah, and Jackie Earle Haley shows up at the very end as like this Weasley fucking vice president. No, Tommy Lee Jones, I love his character. I think his character was beautifully done. But there was another Michael Stuhlbarg, that's who it was, that stood up. He was like, I vote aye. And he was all very dramatic about it because that's Michael Stuhlbarg.
Yes.
I studied at Juilliard.
To recap, Jeremy Recca warned Irresistible. Did you say you saw it on Netflix?
HBO Max.
HBO Max. And you also Recca warned American Woman. Where did you see that one?
Flipping channels. I'll find out.
Flipping channel. Just flip channels, guys. American
flip
Woman
channels, folks.
Hang on, Hulu. It's on Hulu.
I recommended My Octopus Teacher, which is on Netflix. And I also recommended #Alive, which is also on Netflix. Barrett recommended Judas and the Black Messiah, which is on HBO Max now.
For only a few more days.
Yeah, that window of time where it's playing the big movies and then it goes into that limbo window where, it's, I guess you could pay for the stream once it gets off of the free HBO Max.
Yeah.
And then recommended Lincoln, 2012 Spielberg joint with Daniel Day-Lewis.
I can't recommend Judas and the Black Messiah to you two in particular heavily enough. I think you guys would love this movie. Now I've built it up too much and you're going to be like,
That's how we do.
I'm definitely going to watch that at some point. Better watch it before it goes off the. Well, I would pay for it, obviously, but if it's being,
I'd pay for it.
If you're gonna have it up there, if you're gonna have it up there, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch that at some point.
There you go.
You got some questions?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Okay, first one is are there any TV show intros that you won't skip when binging the show? I usually skip them myself, but the one that I just can't skip is Ghost Adventures, and I end up saying the intro out loud with it, for better or worse. Now, that's the tagline to that is the most interesting part of that question. But anyway, what do you guys think?
I'm going to tell you something right now. I never skip the intros. Never.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I love the intros. Even the ones that like aren't even that good, I sit through them. I don't like skipping over that type of stuff. And I think the reason why is maybe because when I was a kid, a lot of my like bedtime ritual was the 10 o'clock or the 9 o'clock shows or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would see the opening intro of something, and that would be my last thing that I could watch before going to bed or whatever. So I, knew a lot of these intros to some 80s TV shows. But I don't know, man. I love intros. I just love them.
Wow.
And if you, I have watched TV with people where they forward through the intros, and I always like, I'm the guest here. I guess I'll.
Well, there's that. And then, of course, on the streaming platforms, I think all of them have a skip intro option, at least after the first one. I remember The Undoing fucking show. The Undoing, after that first one, had the skip intro after that, and I sure did because it was long and stupid.
Well, sometimes you skip an intro because they couldn't get the rights for the song. And so, like, my wife hates the Dawson's Creek intro on streaming services because it doesn't have that Paula whatever song on it.
Where have all the No.
I don't want to wait.
I don't want to wait.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you say Paula who?
I don't know. Patton, Poundstone, some Paula.
Paula Poundstone.
No,
was it Natasha Bedingfield who did that?
No. It's it was Paula something.
It was Paula Cole.
Paula Cole.
So there's some kind of I remember looking it up a long time ago when she got mad about it, but there's some kind of rights kerfuffle where they don't have the rights to that song. And I think there's actually like a few episodes or one season where they have that song on streaming, and then the rest of the seasons have this other bullshit song my wife absolutely hates, and so she skips the intro because of that.
I never even thought about that.
But if you were to ask me what my favorite one is, there's several that I enjoyed sitting through. But the most, I would say one of the best is one of the most recent is Stranger Things.
Yeah. That is good.
It really, really gets me in the mood to watch that show. Although I don't know, like that show started to become a little bit more, what would you call it over the next few seasons? Even though it was fine, there wasn't any. It didn't seem like there was any real danger to anything.
No, it got a little more goofy. You know, there's a lot more of the slapstick humor between the fuzzy-headed kid and Maya Hawke and everything. And just a little campier.
It was fine. It just. But there is something to that Stranger Things intro. It's very retro. It's very nostalgic and everything. That's what a lot of movies in the 80s would do with their titles and everything. They would have that same font. They'd have that electronic, all that going on. And there's something about it, but, and it goes on like forever. Like if you're a person who hates intros, this is a skip for you. But every time it comes on, I'm like, yeah, all right, time to watch some Stranger Things, and I just let it go. I just let it run.
Awesome. I wish that was me. I really do, because I think I'm just too much of a cynic, and I want that 10 seconds so that, later on in life, I've piled all those 10 seconds from intro skipped into like an hour or something.
Nice.
But the one that
I deathbed be like, I got that final hour,
got an extra hour, you bitches. The one for me that I'm settling on was Band of Brothers, which I watch probably once a year, usually whenever HBO has it on Marathon, which tends to be around things like Veterans Day. Days where we're honoring our military. It's one of the best miniseries ever made. But what I love about the intro is its own perfect piece of score. And you've got some images from the show, but it's just score, and it's that it's really moving. And I felt like the combination of that emotional score, and then every episode went right into score-free interviews with the real people for about 30 to 40 seconds before they would flash into the episode. There's something about that combination of events that I feel that sets me up perfectly for the episode. It gets me in the right frame of mind. It gets my emotions soaring, then reminds me these are real people I'm about to watch. So that's one I never skip. I usually skip them all, I will admit, but that one I don't.
It's interesting you both kind of have a derivative of like, this gets me in the mood for a show. And I think that's the best you can hope for if you're doing one of these opening title sequences, right? It's just like, is this necessary? Game of Thrones famously, of course, did this, where there's actual narrative pieces in that, if you want to pay attention to it. I have two, and I think, good reasons for both of them. One is Breaking Bad. Okay, the down, and that's
Always
it.
a dramatic entrance.
That's it. And man, I'm gonna watch that every time. There is an option to skip that on Netflix. I don't even know if it's still on Netflix. But I'm like, first of all, that's like 5 seconds long, and I understand that you could save 5 seconds and get an extra 50 minutes at the end of your life. But what the reason that this is, you mentioned a cue, Chris, like right before you go to bed. I never watched Breaking Bad in real time, so I always binged it. And that shit would run together, man. Like each episode going into the next one, because it's so addictive to me that I never stopped. The only thing that told me that there was differentiating an episode was that opening. Because when I heard the don't, I was like, oh, that's a new episode. Okay. It's been 8 hours on the couch. I should probably stop this. But I also love the twanginess of it. I love the sinister notion of it, and it's great.
It's kind of like a Morphine song, right? Like a Morphine guitar riff. You know,
that's a wild pull. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And the other one is the opening theme for The Sopranos, which is by a band called Alabama 3. And it's that woke up this morning. I fucking love that song, man. It's so badass. My ex-girlfriend used to have it on CD, and we would play it all the time for whatever reason. It's just one of those songs that I love. I hated her, and I hated her car, but I love that song, and I could listen to it. One of the only score-based songs that I could listen to outside of the actual thing. And that credit sequence was balls, too.
They used to play that song on Lightning 100 as just a song.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, actually.
Yeah. I also like that intro because it shows him driving, and then you're just like, there's not even any pretense that this is New York Mafia. Like, this is Jersey through and through. Like,
it sure is.
Don't misunderstand where we are, people.
Because, it shows him being a badass, but then it's like, New Jersey Turnpike this way.
That song is awesome. You mentioned Game of Thrones. The other thing about Game of Thrones is not just the beauty of the all the stuff that they're doing on that map and everything, but there was also a dramatic thing that would happen, because if you're used to the credits at the beginning, if you're watching the credits, if you know a character has died in a previous episode and they suddenly don't show up in the credits in the next episode, there was something that was always dramatic about that. Like, you watch the first season of Game of Thrones, and like Sean Bean is like, bam, bam, bam. He's there every time. Sean Bean. And then he dies, and it's like suddenly Peter Dinklage is the first one that shows up. Or not Peter Dinklage, but somebody who else is on there. I think Peter Dinklage did. I think Peter Dinklage did end up being the top credit at one point on Game of Thrones, the first one you'd see.
He was my favorite part of that whole. I only watched really the first half of the series and then the last season. He was always my favorite part. Like, other people would come and go, but he's just so good.
He was uniformly excellent all the way through. Even when that last season was pissing on everybody at the end, Peter Dinklage was still good.
The dragons were pissing all over everybody, pissing fire.
They were just raining pee on everybody.
Constellation urine.
I did a Blade trilogy rewatch last weekend. God bless you. When I got to the third one, I was shocked at how deep the talent bench was for them and future stars. Check IMDb, setting aside Snipes and Chris Christopherson. This movie has Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, Parker Posey, Natasha Lyonne, Patton Oswalt, Callum Keith Ronnie, John Michael Higgins, Dominic Purcell, Eric Bogosian, James Remar, and the WWE's Triple H. Sorry. Yep. So my question to the group is, can you find a movie with a deeper bench that made as crappy of a movie as this one? I went deep diving and read about all the production troubles, all that stuff.
That broke my heart. I love the third Blade movie.
I kind of love the third Blade movie too. I think that's my favorite of the franchise.
I don't know. The Thursday night that I watched this, which was the last time I saw Blade Trinity, I I hated that movie so much.
Oh no!
And if I watch it again, maybe I'll have that same kind of feeling. But this actually happens a lot. There are a lot of movies where they have like this stellar cast, and somehow the movie sucks. It seemed like they made tons of these in the 90s at one point, where it was always like something like you had Sean Penn, Kevin Spacey, Robin Wright, and all that, and the movie would always be terrible.
U-Turn. U-Turn.
What? Oh, U-Turn was one that was, although U-Turn has its charms. But the first movie that I thought of was Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh my God.
Sort of this is a thing. Like, I think Love Actually made people believe that they could make these kind of movies, on the regular, and I think they thought that, oh, look at all these stars that are in Love Actually. Well, let's just put a whole bunch of stars in some movie with no script, and people will still love this anyway. And some of these are huge hits. I think Valentine's Day was a huge hit.
Yeah, he's not that into you.
Yeah, he's not. He's just not that into you. And New Year's Day and all these movies. But Valentine's Day has Julia Roberts, Emma Roberts, Jessica Alba, Jessica Biel, another Jessica Biel, by the way, Queen Latifah, Kathy Bates, Bradley Cooper, Jamie Foxx, Patrick Dempsey, Anne Hathaway, Jennifer Garner, Topher Grace, Shirley MacLaine, Ashton Kutcher, and the Tay-Tays, Taylor Swift and Taylor Lautner are both in this too.
Wait, Topher Grace is in that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I send that movie and I forgot Topher Grace was in this. Because Ashton Kutcher is the main guy, right? The really annoying.
Yeah, let me look this up real quick, just in case I fuck something up.
No, you're probably right. I would totally believe it.
Topher Grace is in Irresistible, by the way, which I recommend.
No, Topher Grace is listed for Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Maybe he was wearing like a prosthetic or something you didn't recognize. But anyway, the that movie is bad. It's really bad. And Bradley Cooper's in that. He's just not that into you too. Fucking A, man.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Fuck?
Paycheck Bradley.
I go with Pearl Harbor, which had a lot of famous people in it at the time, but has a few people who have since become famous. So I'll rattle off these: Ben Affleck, Josh Hartnett, Kate Beckinsale, Jennifer Garner, Tom Sizemore, Jamie King, Alec Baldwin, John Voight, Cuba Gooding Jr., Michael Shannon, Dan Aykroyd, William Fichtner, Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, and sitcom favorite Ted McGinley. All of them are in Pearl Harbor.
Jeez. Yeah, and that's a bad movie. That may be. You think that's the worst Michael Bay movie?
No.
Worst Michael Bay movie.
Can't possibly be, because there's at least decent action in a couple of spots in Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor has a great trailer.
It does. Yeah.
Trailer with the kids playing baseball or the planes flying low over the hills.
And you see the bomb perspective as it goes down and hits the ship and all that.
What's the worst Michael Bay movie? Let's do a whole podcast on that at some point, because I'm sure I can find
Bad
something
Boys
worse
2?
than Pearl Harbor.
Well, Bad Boys 2 would be up there. One of the latter Transformers would be up there.
Oh, yeah, that was a blank spot.
He's directed all of those, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
So the most recent one is the worst, the one with the fucking King Arthur, Anthony Hopkins bullshit.
Yeah, it was like, was it The Last Night or?
Yeah.
Knights of the Round Cybertron.
Did he do? He may have not done. I know he didn't do Bumblebee, but he did all the other Transformers. So, and Bumblebee was pretty good.
Yeah, I know Bumblebee.
Bumblebee's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to come out a complete left field for you people. It is a 1999 American comedy film called 200 Cigarettes that nobody remembers.
I remember this.
It's New Year's Eve in like 1981, and there's a bunch of people in New York going to a party and going to clubbing and doing New Year's stuff. Totally forgettable. It's a bad, bad movie. But listen to this cast, especially given 1999 standards. Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck, Dave Chappelle, Elvis Costello, Angela Featherstone, Janine Garofalo, Gabby Hoffman, Kate Hudson, Courtney Love, Jay Moore, Martha Plimpton, Christina Ricci, and Paul Rudd. That cast is awesome. But that movie blows. You guys have seen this, right?
I never saw it. I remember the poster.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out.
It's a good poster.
I didn't like it.
Yeah,
but it seemed like, and it's going to end up, there's only like 3 or 4 or something, but it seemed like there were so many movies coming out around that time that had cigarettes in the title.
Yeah.
And it was so fucking pretentious, man. Coffee and cigarettes. 200 cigarettes. Like, it's these screenwriter things like, hey, I smoke a lot of cigarettes. That's really story worthy somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And they write that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Cigarettes and heroin.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sorry. That wasn't a movie.
No. It probably is. I bet I could type in. I bet I could type in cigarettes and heroin, and something close would come up at least, if not that exact title.
It stars Billy Crudup.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he directed it somehow.
He directed it, produced it, wrote it. Is there a supporting character in a movie that you wish had more screen time or didn't get killed off too early? I recently rewatched The Long Kiss Goodnight. Excellent idea. And was kind of sad when Brian Cox was killed. His part was so fun and hilarious with the amount of time he had on screen, but I wanted more.
Yeah. I when I was trying to answer this question, I was like, I know there's like several that fit into this category, but I couldn't think of them right off the bat. But one of them I thought of was George Carlin in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Nice.
The way this movie is, he could have easily shown up 2 or 3 more times in this movie, since it's a road trip movie, and Jay and Silent Bob are going from New Jersey to California, and George Carlin, who has this memorable cameo talking about you got to give head to the driver before he gives you a ride and all that. He could have shown up at least 2 or 3 more times. Now that movie is chock full of talk about a lot of people, a lot of comic talent, and everything just show up in that. Will Ferrell, it becomes the Will Ferrell show for a while in that in that thing. But I think it would have been nice to have a little like an aside every once in a while, like, "Hey, I see you guys are coming. We're in the same place again. Amazing," that type. And he just does something else funny or whatever. So yeah, George Carlin in that movie would have been fun.
Excellent, excellent. I'm gonna go with Freddie Miles and Talented Mr. Ripley. This is the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, who gets 4 scenes in the movie, 5 if you count a location change. We meet him when Jude Law and Ripley go to Rome for the first time, and they're eating, and he mentions him, and then literally Freddie Miles drives up, but ciao bella, don't you just want to fuck every woman once? And they embrace, and then the next scene is they're at a record shop, and he's in there listening to records with Jude Law, giving the stink eye to Ripley. And then Ripley goes sightseeing, goes home alone, wakes up the next morning, and Freddie Miles is there and says, "I want your job, Tommy. You eat Dickie's food, you wear Dickie's clothes. It's all paid for by Dickie's dad. If you quit, I'll take that job." The next scene, they're on the boat. That's how's the peeping? Tommy. And then his last scene is when he shows up at that apartment that is registered to Dickie, but Ripley's living there, and he ends up getting killed. What I love about this character is he's the only one who completely sees through Ripley's bullshit from day one.
Yep.
Even Marge, Gwyneth Paltrow, loves him at first and only suspects him at the end when he's the only real option. But from the first time he meets him in that record room where he's like giving him the stink eye, basically saying, "You were such a putz." He's saying it with a face. And I love that about him. And I like to believe, don't tell me I'm wrong, but I like to believe they shot more scenes with Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, because I feel like Tom needs more Freddie in his life. Now, the detective comes in after that, and he sort of unsettles Tom a little bit. But Tom basically has it easy.
He sure
for
does.
Most of this. Like,
lucky Mr. Ripley.
He is not as talented as he is fortunate. And I just feel like that character is so good. And it may be one of those things where he's so good because he's used so sparingly. And if we did get more of him, it would ruin it. But when he's on screen in that movie, it's electric, and I just love it.
That happens quite a bit, right? Leave them wanting more, that type of thing.
Yeah, maybe that.
I tell you what, man, I would not have guessed that from them. I watched that movie probably 3 or 4 times, and I would have said that he's in 30-40% of the movie because he's so outsized. His scenes seem to go on pretty long. I mean, that scene when he's coming up to the apartment, and isn't Ripley in the shower or something like that, or is that when?
No, he's playing the piano.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It just seems like he's in more of that movie, but that's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna watch that movie again.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I tell you what, I've got some weird ones. My favorite part of the movie A Star Is Born, the Bradley Cooper Lady Gaga version, is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's really, really good in that. And it's obviously a very different role than he's ever had. I think he's got like one zinger in there. You can tell now, if you've seen his later stand-up, how deep and gravelly his voice has gotten. Also, how jacked he's gotten. I don't know what sort of fitness plan he's on. But he's a whole different character when he goes down to, I think he lives in Memphis, when he goes down to visit Chappelle and his wife, and they basically nurse him back to health, and he gives him a bit of a pep talk. And it's not a side of Dave Chappelle that you've ever seen. And now that he's kind of in this more thoughtful phase, you could say, I think I wouldn't say wasted, but I think it's only like 2 scenes that he's in. And I would have liked to seen a lot more of that and a lot less of Bradley Cooper grumbling and drunkenly. It's still my fucking voice. And I want to mention that I think the character of Rue got short-shrifted in the Hunger Games because she was super interesting. Yeah, exactly. She was super interesting. You know, she was the only one besides Peeta that really wanted to team up with Katniss. And she was also shown to have like actual skills instead of Peeta with his fucking ice cream frosting thing that he does to camouflage, which is some bullshit. I want to see Rue and Katniss on that trailer thing at the end and teaming up to be badasses. But
I'm sort of conflicted about. She did. I'm kind of conflicted about it because my gut reaction is that it's kind of manipulative to the audience, but then at the same time, I feel like it helps set the stakes for the audience. But I would have preferred they killed somebody besides her, especially since she's gone on to show she's such a great actress. She could have done, if Rue had lived and then been in the sequels, that could have been right.
The Hate You Give.
The Hate You Give, yeah. I think, and obviously, the book was written by Susan Collins long before, but like I think you've set up Peeta so hard to be a protagonist that I think they could have killed him and had the exact same outcome with a better character going forward in the series. But what do I know? I don't have $1 million book.
It does become a rallying cry and everything, her death. But, in a movie where everybody's supposed to die except one person, it's kind of hard to like hold on to anybody,
Well, exactly. That my point is that if they are going to kill everybody except for one, that it should have been Peeta.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rue at the end. But
he shouldn't have been able to get away with his fucking bullshit,
cake decorating.
Yeah, I'm a cake decorator. So this is exactly like Bill Murray saying my dad's a piano mover, and that's why
he should not be able to live until the end of this movie if he's a cake, and into the next ones. If he's a cake fucking decorator.
That's going to do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We're on Discord, and we're on SoundCloud. If you want to get on Discord, currently, I believe it is just go to Facebook and private message me, and I'll give you a link there.
Yeah.
Reddit may have it somewhere, but
who knows? I tell you
who
what,
knows
though,
anymore?
It's March. We're getting ready for Sin Week, people. It's coming. It's coming soon. March 22nd to the 26th, right? Sounds right.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
I'm relying on you to be right about that.
I believe that is right.
Yeah, it's going to be a virtual Sin Week. You don't have to travel anywhere. Please don't. Just log on after you get on cinema or patreon.com/cinemasins. Sign up at any level, and you get access to 3 bonus videos. That means 5 for the day or 5 for the week. That would be a lot. 4 different panels, all kinds of fun stuff. And you get to hang out with us. And isn't that the best gift of all?
It is.
So, yeah, Sin Week, March 22nd. Go to patreon.com/cinemasins and sign up.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com. And the punchline, of course, is wrong hole. He's telling this to a Japanese guy, though. So there is no punchline from us. So he's just smiling and nodding the whole time. Like, can you imagine a joke like that where they're saying something in your language and you're like, yeah, all right, what's the big fucking deal, bitch?
Yeah. That's like when that dude at trivia from Germany used to show up all the time and like you're trying to explain why that's what she said was a joke. Like try to explain to somebody who doesn't know that why that is supposed to be funny.
Well, so the German guy didn't know why it was funny?
No. At all.
Oh my God.
You gotta understand that I think he basically just kind of made it through by hearing a word or two. And then when you said that's what she said, then you had to describe why that's funny. Well, it sounds like something that's sexual. And it'd be like, put it in the right hole. And you're like, yeah.
Oh Jesus!
I don't have something long enough to do this. That's what she said.
No, I was singing the Nothing But a Good Time, Chris, because I read this excerpt in Rolling Stone from yet another book of the LA scene in the mid 80s that turned into the big rock explosion. And it's the same thing that you and I have read in that Guns N' Roses book. Because the excerpt is all about how Guns N' Roses formed. You know, Tracy Guns and Izzy Stradlin and all those guys. But the article is written like a fucking Californians episode. Where they're like, really? We went up to the Troubadour and like we went down south by Franklin Street and Axl was living up in like the West Hills and we had to take the 5 all the way over there to get to the Roxy. Like, God,
there are some articles. I don't know if it's the article's fault or if it's the people telling the story and like the interview's fault or whatever.
Yeah, this is an oral history, so I think it is their fault.
But like, there are some articles that you read and you're like, and it's like Anne Hathaway comes in fastidiously to the cafe where I'm sitting enjoying a cigarette. And you're just like, that doesn't fucking matter.
No, it could be 5 words.
Nobody cares.
Fastidiously.
It's like that Goes Wrong show where they add extra adjectives to make the runtime longer.
Yeah.
I know the Whiskey Lounge and I know the Troubadour and stuff like that, and I know that stuff pretty well. Like anybody else reading this article is just gonna be like, the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, no.
Franklin and Elm Street? Who the hell cares where the fuck that is?
Yeah.
Or like, we played the Garazi and then we went over to Cander's Deli.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's the same thing as if you were to try to tell anybody something that's going on in a Nashville neighborhood or whatever. Went over to Green Hills and then, went to went down the Natchez Trace, and I mean,
well, dude, I'm getting to the point where I don't even know where people are talking about. Like, when Kevin was telling where they're moving, and it was like WeHo or something like. I know where WeHo is, but it was something else that he said, and I was like,
they started making up neighborhood names for like 2-block areas now, and I don't like it. Like, every time I read about a new restaurant in the Gulch, I'm like, well. Been nice knowing you. I'll never fucking go there.
Yeah.
The traffic and then the line out the door, the Gulch is just it's a deal breaker for me. I'm not going fucking there.
Yeah, same here. The Gulches was one of those it was I don't think I even knew that was getting built when it was getting built.
Yeah.
And I just happened to drive through it one day.
What the fuck is this?
I was like, is this even Nashville? Like, it just doesn't even seem like Nashville. And
there's like free garage parking and like walking spaces and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah. Then they started doing that whole thing that New York does with all their neighborhoods, right? Where you have Soho is south of Houston. So now they started doing this thing where it's south of Demumbrian. So now we got Sobro, that type of thing. And, it makes it sound hip, but it's really just there's no character to these places. They're just it's just a location.
It's just downtown. That's all downtown to me.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Downtown.
Downtown.
Like the song. That's perfect, George.
Downtown.
They still make movie shows.
I'm at the corner of 41st and 41st. How can
it's
street
first and
intersect
first.
itself? First and first.
Is that the nexus
of the universe? Because I have a super important one myself. Can't wait to share.
It's going to be about tacos or something.
You're not far off. You're not far off.
What did you think of Killing of a Sacred Deer? I don't think I've asked you about
I saw
it.
it 2 weeks ago because it was picked in the thing with the people from the theater that I watch movies with every once in a while. That and Baccarat was picked out of nowhere.
Oh, interesting.
I got to slay one
pretty good movie.
Slay one of the 25 movies that Aaron put down, but Killing of a Sacred Deer didn't like.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's divisive. I loved it, but I understand.
Yeah,
I totally understand.
It's got his quirkiness, but it's also got seriousness to it, and it's hard to. It's not like Scrubs, right, where you can believe there's a way to balance that drama and the comedy and everything. In Killing of a Sacred Deer, when Colin Farrell is going off about we don't have the right, like, what is it? He says something about we don't have a dove feather and pubes or some shit. He throws pubes in there. He's like, what we're dealing with here is magic. The only way we're going to be able to fix this is if we find a dove feather and we find this and some pubes. And I don't think we have any dove feather or pubes anywhere around here. And he's like opening up drawers and throwing shit out and everything. And I'm like sitting there. I love this scene, but then there's like a lot of just seriousness to it afterwards.
Oh yeah.
It's like, come on, balance this. So,
I can't remember the movie, but there was some movie I didn't like in the last few years, and people were all like, he's doing a riff on this 150-year-old Russian story, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, how does that fucking help me? It doesn't help me. Exactly. I don't care if he was like inspired by some piece of greatness. I need to be able to understand what I'm watching from beginning to end without having, like you said, I'm not Morgan Freeman in Seven. I'm not going to go to the library and read books all night just to fucking understand the movie I'm watching. Sorry, that was your rant. I stole it.
It's so great. My father introduced me to Monty Python, and I've watched all that stuff. My favorite part of that skit, though, is that it's set in the present day. Like, it's just, Graham Chapman and Eric Idle and just kind of like walking in the present day, and the short order cook is going in there. And as soon as they say, I don't like spam, there's just a table of Vikings. They're just like spam, 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 spam. Nobody acknowledges that they're Vikings.
I've only heard the audio version of that, so I never saw the visual of it.
Oh, it's so great.
I got spam, bacon, eggs, sausage, and spam.
This is side one. And then like Mike gave me a tape off of a record or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess it probably was a CD, but they still kept in all the album stuff. Like, this is side 2, and everything. And we skipped over a few things. There was some lovely acting in there, and blah 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 blah. And there were a few offensive things. It was like one boob and a foreskin, or something. You were talking about costume dramas, and like the thing that entered my head immediately was Bridgerton, because remember how we both had seen the first couple of episodes, and I hadn't gotten through, and I was a little disappointed too in the racy content, because I was just like, I thought this show was about fucking.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
And so I went ahead and watched the rest of the season, and it does get into some more fucking than usual.
Should I pull the trigger on the rest of Bridgerton? Is it worth?
Yeah, I would. I think it's just good enough to watch the rest of the way. Yeah, I thought it was all right. I thought it was good.
Also, on Bridgerton, the phrase "pulling the trigger" means something completely different.
It does.
Oh, nutshots? Or
I'm talking out of my ass. You can ignore me. I'm just making that up.
I mean, there is.
I believe it.
I mean, there's, how the one thing that I got tired of during that whole thing, and I guess that I suppose this is something that happened back in the day, but they're always referring to the wealthy society as the ton. Every time they say the ton, and it's spelled Ton, the ton. So we're going out to visit the ton, and you're like, I hate that word. I hate it. I hate how you pronounce it. I hate how you use it. It's annoying.
Is there a particular reason, or is it's just one of those things?
You start hearing it all the time. You start hearing them say ton, and you're like, and like 2 different times in the series, they said ton the first time. I was like, what the fuck do they mean by the ton? So I looked it up, and I was like, oh, okay, wealthy society. Okay, the people, and blah, blah, blah. And then I had that long period of time where I didn't watch it, and I came back, and they started saying it again, and I was like, what the fuck is the ton? I know, I'll look this up. But